We are live and on the air. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the championship edition of Fan Friction. Welcome. Today we have 3 fighters assembled. They've all won their respective weeks of Fan Friction, and they're here today to see who is the champ among champions on Fan Friction. So let me introduce them to you. Our first finalist joins us from 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, all the way from the land down under. Please welcome back Sam Catlin.
Hey, got it right.
Yes, I practiced. I made sure I could say your name.
I just lost a lot of money. Damn it.
Sorry about that. Our second fighter, he's one half of the show, Odd Shape Panel, right here on the TUFF channel. He's from the Catskills of New York. Please welcome back Tom Bennis. Welcome back, Tom.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. And finally, our last finalist joins us from the great state of Ohio, where he'll be hosting a brand new show on our TUFF channel. It's called The DVD Bunker. And please welcome back Ryan Hurst.
Woo! Free plug! Woo, all right!
And finally, with us as always is our checker chair checker. It's the fabulous Texas native Ashley Davis. Ashley, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Woo! So if you've never seen the show before, I don't know why. We have 4 of these episodes, so definitely check out the other ones. However, just to tell you quick about the game, there are 5 rounds of movie fights where the panelists will debate about a movie question, and then the winner of the first 5 fights will move on to the lightning round, along with the runner-up. And in the lightning round, they will battle it out in a best-of-5 speed competition to see who is the champion of our show for Fan Friction. Let's see. If you want to join us on Twitter, you can follow along with the conversation. The hashtag is below. It is This Is TUFF. That's TUFF. We will be following along the Twitter feed and mentioning your tweets as we go along, so please join us there. And just so you know, today, the winner will receive 2 very special prizes. The first one Brian has made, and he's going to hold it up here in a moment. It is the Fan Friction Champion Belt. You have to say something.
Yeah, check it out, ladies and gentlemen. We went legit now.
So Brian would like to not have to ship that to any of you, so if you could all just listen, we really appreciate it. Our second prize.
Give me a couple bucks
the
to tank this one, guys. Come on, help me out.
I'll pay for shipping. Don't worry about it.
The other prize for our winner will be announced at the end of the show, but you're definitely going to want to win this fight, and I'll tell you why at the end after you've won. So with no further ado, I believe we are ready to begin the first round of Fan Friction Championship fights. Here we go, guys. Warner Brother announced this week in our Topic Thunder round, Warner Brother announced they are pushing the movie Godzilla 2 to 2019. So we figured, while we wait, what is the best monster from a monster movie? And we are going to start today with Sam.
Okay, so when I think monster, I think something terrifying, something that's going to scare me, something that's out to get me, something under the bed, in the closet, just something horrible. So the movie I've picked for the best monster from a monster movie, now I'll try and give a hint. So those of you that hadn't seen the movie like our fabulous fact checker, I'm talking about Jaws, which is about a great white shark, which is oversized, well, maybe not oversized, we don't know what crevices of the black abyss. I saw Jaws when I was a kid. I've never gone in the ocean again, as per millions of people, but literally the tagline is, you'll be afraid to go in the water. So that's the movie I'm going with.
All right, Jaws, sounds good. Tom, you're going to be number 2 today. Who did you pick?
To start things off, though, well, okay, I picked Fawn or Pan from Pan's Labyrinth. When I think movies, I don't think like monster, like good monster movies. I don't think like about just something that's bent on destruction. I fell asleep in the theater during Godzilla. It was not good. What I like is when myths are used to teach children lessons, and that's what modern movies have become, are modern myths. So why not take something that is based on mythology, a Pan, and use it like you would Dracula or Creature of the Black Lagoon or Frankenstein's monster. All these movies give these monsters' emotion and motives. And that's why they're successful. And people end up cheering for the monsters and forgetting about the victims and the hero because they can empathize with them. And that's why I picked Pan from Pan's Labyrinth.
All right. Wonderful. And Brian, who did you pick?
My pick is The Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing.
All right.
Obviously, I think we can all agree we all picked like great monsters. Everybody loves those. So I'm just going to try to get into some things that I think raise The Thing up a little higher. First thing I want to talk about is design. Not just one, but multiple amazing creature designs. Some of the best body horror practical effects still that stand the test of time. Rob Bottin did them, by the way. Shout out to him. RoboCop, Total Recall, just a master of his craft. Also, The Thing is scary for a multitude of reasons. You know, it's not just that it's horrifically violent and consumes you, but it also becomes you, and it builds this distrust in your... I mean, there's people who actually flat out in this movie don't know if they're the alien or not, and that is terrifying. Like, am I a monster? I think I'm not, but who knows? And that kind of distrust also helps it infiltrate any area it gets into. And that's the next thing. It's like malicious intent. It's not just killing. It wants to overtake us. It wants to be better than us. It wants to replace us. And that's the thing that something like Jaws doesn't have. Jaws is just a predator. Jaws is at the top of the food chain, and he found himself some nice soft meat, a big food source, and he's just coming back for more. But there's no intent there. He's not seeking us out, unless you want to start arguing Jaws the Revenge. I don't think anybody's going to stand up for that. Anything else that I think that The Thing is just the cornerstone of alien monsters. And with Fawn, that's a great design. That's an amazing, like, beautiful. I love Doug Jones, but I think he's overshadowed in his own movie by another monster, and that's the Pale Man. I mean, you're the titular character, and yet the thing people remember from your movie is not that monster. So for me, it falls a little short.
All right, guys, keep fighting.
I'll jump in right there. The concentration is not the Pale Man at all. The Pale Man is actually a reflection of the Captain, who is the true monster. The whole point is that in this world of fantasy and mistrust, when we meet Fawn, he's monstrous. His proportions are off. He has dead, milky eyes, and he tells Ophelia that she's a princess, and we're not going to trust that. Who is this person? This little girl may be in trouble. And as the film progresses, like, he gives her tasks, and at the same time, you find out he's going to marry her and have children with her. And you're like, this is weird, don't trust him. But you begin to see more and more of the Captain and his monstrosity, which proves that a monster can teach us things.
I mean, I understand that the Fawn is the focus. I just think that the Pale Man is a more memorable monster from that movie.
I feel like only because... Go ahead, Sam.
So you've just brought up yourself there that the biggest monster in your movie is the Captain. So that guy is absolutely despicable. You see that from...
I agree with what you're saying, but in every movie...
So if you want to go with the best monster from that movie, I'd say the Captain is a far better monster. You get introduced to this guy, he goes out, he beats someone to death with a bottle. That's truly monstrous. That's just
that
horrible.
That scene is guttural. That's gruesome, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the whole point of the film, and to kind of push that under the rug. If I was arguing the Captain, you'd be like, well, he doesn't look like a monster. So that's just semantics.
No, if you were arguing the Captain, I'd totally say he's the best monster in that movie.
Well, yeah, of course you would now. If we're going with Jaws, the first thing you say was, and I'm going to give you a hint, and it wasn't a fin in the water, it was the bun-up, bun-up, because the scariest thing in Jaws is the music. The only reason that it's pulled off is because of the suspense, and we never see the Jaws, and that's because of malfunctioning. That was never planned. That was just a happy accident. It's an unintentional love letter to Hitchcock. It's suspense. It's not horror. It's not a monster movie. It's about a shark. It's a survival tale.
Well,
that's what makes it so real and terrifying, though, because if you go into the ocean, you can't see what's beneath you. Things can attack you from anywhere. That's the thing. You have all these people that like to go to the ocean, like to go to the beach. I'm not one of them. Last time I went to the beach, I stuck one toe in, said, right, I'm done. I took some photos and I left.
Hey, I love Jaws. I think everybody does, but it succeeds in spite of its practical effects, whereas The Thing brings to life some truly horrifying creatures, and not only that, but then twists with some amazing suspense, and is terrifying in that way too. So The Thing works on multiple levels.
It's unfortunate, though, that you lost the Oscar to special effects to Poltergeist and E.T.
That's blasphemy. Poltergeist is a joke by comparison to The Thing.
Meanwhile, Pan got at least 2 Oscars for makeup and art direction, not to mention 96 other award wins and 97 nominations. It is internationally
It's a much different time, though. Pan came about in a time when those kind of movies get awards. People don't even get, when The Thing came out, people were given awards to sci-fi movies. Not the horror, though. Not the horror. Still,
Roger Ebert
for a good horror movie.
Roger Ebert. Well, first off, your motive, this is such an important monster movie to you. I would assume you would know the correct motives of the monster, and the ones you pitched are not the correct motives.
To survive, to kill, and to survive, it crashed.
Have you read the
comic?
comic?
Out into the ice. The comic? No. This is the movie fight.
No, but if it's canon to detail your monster.
That have nothing to... No way. That's not canon. The movie is canon.
It's about the movie. It's about the movie, not the comics. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, so
that creature crawled out to survive until it was found.
Okay.
Until it was found by a new group of people, so it could then propagate itself. That is what we know about The Thing in The Thing.
Now, when you talk about the effects, though, and things, they are very dated if you rewatch that movie today. I think the effects, and the prime example of this is the sequel, prequel, remake, whatever you want to call it, that was done, shows how far advanced we've come since the 80s and what they can do now as compared to a lot of that. And to quote one of our favourite shows, does it hold up? I don't think this holds up in terms of some of the effects. Some of it just looks really weird, and
I don't think 100% of the effects from any movie of that era would hold up, though. But I think it's got a better average, and the things it's attempting to do are so interesting and creative. I think there's times where you can let it pass a little bit.
All right, let's start listening. Let me hear some final thoughts here, Sam. Let me start with you.
All right. So with final thoughts, like I said, in terms of Pan's Labyrinth, I don't see Fawn as a monster. My first introduction to the whole mythology in relation to fawns was the Narnia books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I've always seen fawns not as a monstral type figure, as a mythical creature, as someone friendly, as something I've learned to trust them through that. Like I said, if you want the best monster from that movie, the captain is by far the monster of that film. Now, in terms of The Thing, the Thing's isolated to Antarctica. It's easily killed with fire. I don't see that as a huge threat. The shark in Jaws, this is a real-life threat. Sharks kill people every day. Sharks are horrible. They can kill. And the thing with it is, it was actually proved on Mythbusters that the way they killed the shark in Jaws, that can't actually happen. So that leaves you worried that you think, oh, I've seen the movie, I'll just throw a tank at it and shoot it and it'll explode. No, that wouldn't happen. The shark will kill you.
Look, if there's hundreds of sharks being hunted every day, you would think they would have a better way to kill Jaws. It's not hard. You just get better guns. And the problem isn't even Jaws, it's Amityville, but I won't get into that because that's the sequels. Hunger is the laziest motivation for any monster. If Frankenstein's monster was just about eating people, and it wasn't a character, like, showing humanity, it would not have been pulled off. Classic monster movies are not about scary, it's about character development for something that otherwise people would not root for, which both of your movies fail at.
All right, Brian, final thoughts?
I would say that if you think The Thing is easily killed, you should go back and watch, because they're not even sure that it's dead at the end. It ends with two men sitting next to each other, not knowing if one or the other is still the Thing. I would say that Jaws is a great movie, but it's more suspenseful when you're watching barrels get pulled through the water than it is when you see that mouth open up at the end of the boat. And with Fawn, like I said, beautiful character design, beautiful movie, but as far as being monstrous, it's more like an ambiguous fairy godmother, whereas you can't quite tell what you're doing, but I never found myself frightened of that monster.
Were you ever scared of Frankenstein's monster?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And just to throw in there, just before we end, we do know that Childs isn't the Thing based on the fact he has an ear and clearance shot.
All right, that's the round, guys. Good fighting there. Ashley, what do we got fact-wise? Can you elaborate on this?
Fact-wise, on Pan's Labyrinth, which is the English translated title of the movie, the Fawn's not really based off of Pan. Otherwise, that movie would be super dark because the Pan myth from Greek mythology is very suggestive. So it's just based off of regular Fawn myths, not actual Pan, but U.S. market and all. Everything else sounded pretty clean. There is speculation online about what the true ending of the Thing is, whether or not Childs is really the Thing or not. He goes on to say that, he didn't think he was inhabited, but the director has said other things, but he doesn't really like to talk about it anymore.
All right, what is Twitter saying about the fight?
Twitter has a lot of love for the Thing, and Hamza Juicer said that he agrees with Brian that it was an unforgettable monster, which is scary and intelligent. Morgan Robinson also in agreement that the Thing's effects are the next level, and Hamza Juicer also says that that's an awesome belt to Brian. So
it is, Brian.
And we have a poll as well. Just let me know when you want me to talk about that.
Give me the poll after the fight. Because I always forget to ask for it, so after we pick the winner here. All right, so as always, this is tough. I think with the hashtag, this is tough. I think with Sam's argument about the shark, I think, well, I also, by the way, I saw the movie a July 4th weekend once, and I would not go in the water the next day, and I was at the shore. However, I did return to the water eventually, but it does have that fear about going in the water, but I think as a monster is concerned, he's not quite as impactful in this context as maybe Fawn or the Thing. And I think, Tom, where they both kind of really got you was that yours wasn't really the monster of your movie with the captain. And I think when Brian was talking about how practical the effects were with the Thing is a creature that can be pretty much anybody. And at the end of the movie, you're not even sure if that was... The Thing was killed, so I think Brian is going to be the winner of round number 1. Congratulations, Brian. Well done.
And by the way, man, do I love Pan's Labyrinth and those designs, and I'm a huge Doug Jones fan, so just shout out to all that stuff.
And there's no argument that Jaws is a perfect movie, so it's hard not to pick Jaws.
Agreed.
All right, and the poll results are in line with your decision. 75% of our voters have said the Thing was the best, and then 25% for the Fawn, and no love for Jaws in our audience right now, but those polls are fluid, so I'm sure that'll change over time.
Yeah, well fought, guys. All right, round 2. This is our superhero movie round, where we discuss what's going on in the superhero world. I'm just writing this down so I know whose turn it is. And we got the question. Deadpool was just released on Blu Ray and DVD this past week. If you haven't seen it, the Honest trailer actually features Ryan Reynolds. It's hilarious. So we asked the question, what is Ryan Reynolds' best role aside from Deadpool? And this round we are going to start with Tom.
Okay, my pick is he plays, the movie The Nines is 3 short films that are wrapped up into one large idea. And in this, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, so if you haven't seen it, if you see me talking, don't listen.
People are not going to be rushing out to see Ryan Reynolds movies, so feel free to spoil a little bit if you need it for your fight.
All right, well, the big payoff at the end... You see he plays 3 different characters, and all these characters are different creator types. And the big payoff at the end, and there's a lot of mystery and stuff going on, is that he's revealed to actually be a 9, which is out of 10 on the celestial scale, and we're like 7s. So he like made the Earth. It's pretty much a commentary on like The Sims. So in this movie, he has to play 3 different characters who are also believable of being the same person, and he does an amazing job. The movie's 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's been rated fresh. An editorial on Rotten Tomatoes says that no matter how largely surreal, it's straight and fundamentally secure. People praise Ryan Reynolds for this performance, saying that it's responsible for him breaking out into the roles of your other 2 movies. Go ahead.
Well, let's hear what Brian's movie is.
The movie I picked for Best Ryan Reynolds Performance was The Voices. This is a movie from 2014, although I think it was made actually a couple years before that. Had a hard time getting distribution because it was a very different concept. Ryan Reynolds plays a character, Jerry, who seems very shy and awkward, kind of the anti-Van Wilder, if you will, which I think is funny that we all picked anti-Van Wilder roles for him. I think that's very telling of the type of career he's had. So Jerry seems like a really nice guy, and you're kind of sympathetic towards him, and he makes you laugh, but you also find out that Jerry is a serial killer, and he's fighting with his own mind, and his own mind in this movie is represented by his dog and his cat, Bosco and Mr. Whiskers, and they kind of represent his conscience and his id, you know, one telling him to behave himself and try to be strong, one trying to push him to be more murderous. Now, one thing I really liked about this movie was, you know, Tom said in the Nines that he plays 3 different characters, but they can all also kind of be seen as the same character, and that was kind of my problem with the Nines. Like, he's still very much in Ryan Reynolds' wheelhouse in all those characters. He's kind of a smart business guy, or he's somebody's boyfriend or husband. This is a very different role as far as a kind of a really like toned down version of Ryan Reynolds. And also those character performances for the dog and cat, silly as that can seem in a movie, it was appropriate here, and I thought those were voice actor performances. I'm a guy who really gets into like voice actors for cartoons and things like that, and I could have sworn those were real voice actors, and Ryan Reynolds killed it even just in that kind of silly, over-the-top cartoon stereotype voices that he did for those animals.
All right. Sam, what did you pick?
Okay. Now, to go on the record, what I've been saying all weekend, I won't say it out loud because you don't like me to swear on this show, but you, Jack, you.
Someone's not a Ryan Reynolds fan.
No, I love Ryan Reynolds. Anyone that knows me knows that I have had a man crush on Ryan Reynolds since 2 Guys, a Girl and a Pizza Place. I absolutely love Ryan Reynolds. I watch most movies that he's in, which is why I went and saw my movie Buried. Now, anyone that also knows me knows that one of my biggest fears in the world is being constricted, a bit of claustrophobia, being buried alive. No. That's my ultimate fear, is being buried alive. And now if any potential psychopaths are out there and you want to torture and kill me, hey. Now, I went to this movie in theatres. I went with a couple of friends. The first 2 minutes of this movie, I nearly walked out. Now, the first 2.5, 3 minutes of this movie is pitch black and just breathing. Now, just by Ryan Reynolds' performance of just breathing, I nearly walked out of this film. That's how much the performance had an impact on myself personally. Now, anyone that is claustrophobic and has a fear of being buried alive and things like that, this is a very uncomfortable movie to watch. Now, I knew what I was getting into when I went to this movie. I'd read quite an extensive review on it in Empire magazine and knew that it had been shot during the time he was doing Green Lantern, and that it was all done within 17 days. While filmed in Greece, basically him in a box in the side of the hill. Now, his performance in this movie far outweighs any other performance I've ever seen him do, based on, we talked about Van Wilder before, where he does the cute, fun, sarcastic, jokey sort of roles, that's his bread and butter, that's what he does best, that's who he is. But this movie, we finally got to see him actually nail down a serious role and show some serious acting ability, especially based on the fact that there's only one other person that you actually see in this movie, which is a clip of a woman on a phone. There's no one for him to react with, there's no one for him to act off. There's no multiple performances like you guys have picked where he plays different roles and things. This is just him in a box, and it's some of the best acting I've ever seen. He shows genuine terror, he shows genuine pain, and parts of it were genuine pain. He left the movie with burned hands from the Zippo lighter that he had to use to light up the space that he was in. He goes through stages of grief, and he shows those stages of grief amazingly. He goes through the denial and bargaining and acceptance and all the stages. You see the reactions just in his face. Like I said, a lot of this, you don't have any scope or anything apart from you're looking directly at his face.
All right, guys, fight.
Yeah.
Well, I think Buried is a really good movie. I really do. But I also think it's a movie that like forces you to focus on Ryan Reynolds' performance. It's directly drawing your attention to it, which is why people always bring it up as like a top Ryan Reynolds performance, because you have no choice but to realize what he's doing in this movie. I mean, I think it's well done, but I think as far as a movie that also has good supporting characters for him to interact with and an interesting story around it, I think his best performance, where you get to see a little bit more, would come from the voices.
See, you brought up that he was able to play more in the voices and do more. That's initially how he wanted to play the Nines, but he felt that it would be too self-indulgent to try to make all the characters vastly different. In a Q&A in Austin,
excuse me,
someone asked him about why didn't you go more out about, and he literally said, I was actually thinking about doing a Scottish accent for one of them, but it would be way too much. And I completely agree, and it's exactly the accent he uses for the cat in the voices. That movie, the audience doesn't react to Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is forced to be this character who they try way too hard not to make the Son of Sam. I know about the Son of Sam. He's literally 20 minutes down the road from me. It is a poor execution, and people react to the scenery more than react to the performance. It's the editing, it's the camera work, his performance is just, I shouldn't be here. He's the guy from Clerks.
Just because his performance is a little more subtle, though, I mean, doesn't make it bad. He gets to be outlandish in the other parts of the movie. He gets to play down the Jerry character. And like you said, talked about him not wanting to be more self-indulgent. He's already in a movie where he plays a celestial being who created us all. Well, you might as well get self-indulgent if you're in that movie. Like,
no, it wouldn't have been successful if he did. It would. No, that's where it feels. You were saying that he's playing runaround part. He's not just playing the same run-of-the-mill parts. The second act of that movie is literally the director's life.
It's pretentious. Is overwritten. No, that movie is a hackneyed little thing. It's like Johnny Darko.
It's better than a poor excuse for a woman killing comedy. It's not even. It's not successful. It's a joke.
It's a comedy, but you also feel sympathy for Ryan Reynolds in the voice.
You're forced to. No.
Well, that's what the movie does. It draws your attention to certain things. It forces you into a perspective that the movie wants to tell you a story.
And I get 4 different stories out of my movie. All with captivating parts, all with
similar performances.
Now, I'd like to point out, I've first got a quote in relation to your movie, Brian, The Voices, from my lovely cousin Kathleen. This is how she summed up her...
What film publication does she write for? Just so I know, so I can look that up.
That doesn't matter.
She's a professional, right? She's a critic. She's a well-known.
She's a person that watched the movie.
Lots of people watch the movie.
Yeah, well, I'm just throwing out a quote when I and I'll get into why it's relevant.
Just challenging
after you watch this movie, you feel like you've been raped, but you don't know what happened. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Now, I watched this movie on Saturday for the first time, and I was very confused about what performance Ryan Reynolds was actually trying to give. 1 minute he seems to be trying to be playing like a character that's maybe on the autism spectrum, where he's weird and quirky and awkward. Then he shows signs that he's trying to be a sociopath, but sociopaths don't have emotions, but he's got all these emotions. Then there's the things like the crying in the shower after he's killed someone. and that's the worst fake crying scene I've ever seen. That's one of the worst performances I've ever seen. He does these weird facial expressions that don't match anything to do with anything in the movie constantly. He tries a terrible British accent, which I know that was trying to be comedic and things,
right,
but
he
seemed out of
tries
place.
something is the thing. He tries something in that one. He
Sam,
does
you're
give it different offers, and it's tonally all over the place. I'll give it to you. Yeah, it's different. It's there's a spectrum there. I agree. He does play across many different things. That's why I think it's a good performance for him.
Sam, your cousin should fight. She makes really good points.
Yeah, we can try and get her on one day. She's in Adelaide, so it'll be even later for her.
Right,
you mentioned your movie was made in 17 days. Mine was made with 6 other cast members, so he had people to work off with. Melissa McCarthy, the different roles she plays and the performances she pulls out of Ryan Reynolds are amazing. My movie was made in 22. So the whole it was made in 17 days is not impressive when you're the only guy in the movie.
Let me ask you.
I'm not saying it's impressive. It was more the fact that it was done while he was actually shooting Green Lantern, which is by far one of his worst performances that he's done.
That was a horrible movie.
And just to show you, while you're doing this horrible thing that no one ever wants to talk about again, you can do a really great performance and show really great acting skills.
I want to ask a question.
That was the point of the 17
I want to ask a question of you guys here, and starting with Tom on this one. Tom, if you had to see one of the other 2 movies, which movie would you see?
What was Sam's pick again?
The Buried. Buried.
Buried, yeah.
See, I've seen the other one. Buried, I think I might be interested. The whole thing is there's no way you would survive 5.5 hours in real life, let alone with a Zippo depleting your oxygen supply. You wouldn't be able to call anybody on a cell phone. Looking into this movie, I became less interested to watch it. Before, I probably would have wanted to see Buried more.
So you're saying Brian's movie instead?
Well, no, I said I already saw that one.
Oh, so you'd want to see Sam's. Okay. And then, Brian, if you picked one, which would you want to see?
As in just going in blind, I've never seen either of them before, if I had to pick.
Yeah, if you had to pick, which of the 2 movies, based on the arguments, would you rather see?
Wait, I thought mine had pretentious writing. How did you know if you haven't seen it?
Based on the arguments. I didn't say if I hadn't seen it. I said I'm going off of, like, pretending it's my first time seeing both of them. Like, if I was just going off of what I heard here. I think maybe Buried, probably, if I was just going in blind.
And Sam, I know you've seen both of them. Which argument from the 2 of them, which one would make you want to go rewatch one of theirs?
Which would make me want to rewatch it.
Yeah, that was a good question.
See, if only Brian had thrown out some of the female actors in there, he might have got the lead because they may have movie crushes on several of the female actors.
The rest of the actors in the movie, I can talk about Anna Kendrick, I can talk about Gemma Arterton, but I thought this was about Ryan Reynolds.
Well, there we go. Now we're going to go with Brian's movie just based on the fact that I have crushes on those 2. Because having seen both these movies, I never want to see them again.
Gemma Arterton's head in that, by the way.
All right.
What I will say about the 9s is some of the things. One thing that stood out to me in the 9s when they're talking about what Tom was talking about with the whole number system thing. Koalas.
They can control the weather.
Koalas are telepathic and control the weather. Now, being the only Australian here, I can tell you, koalas aren't telepathic and they can't control the weather. They just look cute and piss on tourists.
No.
I've had interactions with koalas. All they do is look cute and piss on tourists.
They mind-wiped you, man.
All right, I'm going to call it here. Ash, what can you tell me about the facts for this round?
All right, lots of opinions. Just a few short facts. What I could find online is Buried was filmed in Barcelona over the course of 16 or 17 days, and then the 9s was, according to what I found, was filmed over 22 days. I didn't see how long it took them to film the voices, but everything else was pretty much opinion, so...
Okay, and what did Twitter have anything to say?
Yes, some people like Morgan Robinson said that Van Wilder was one of the best Ryan Reynolds roles. Travis also agreed. Besides Deadpool, and there was a poll as well. Janine says that she loved him in Smoking Aces.
Will we all agree that Deadpool is probably Ryan Reynolds' best movie?
After I saw that everybody else picked, I was like, man, I should have picked Van Wilder and tried to fight the easier fight, like his wheelhouse.
I like that we all picked the out of.
I agree.
You know
I liked
I
it
think
too.
that was
I liked it too.
See,
I don't know about saying
stayed
that's
away
the
from
best movie.
I stayed away from Van Wilder based on the fact that that's not a performance. That's just him, from what I gather.
Right.
Yeah,
From what we've seen in terms
Kind of
of
what he
social
did in
media.
Deadpool too. To be fair, it's like we
Yeah,
took away
that's not
his
like a
Deadpool
performance.
role,
It's just
and
him.
since he's doing Van Wilder in a mask, you kind of take away that too.
He's been playing Deadpool in like 4 or 5 movies. Blade, Trinity, he's kind of that guy.
Look, you haven't said the fight. You haven't said the fight's ended yet. So real quick, the whole reason he did the knives was to get.
The fight has ended. I'm not going to take any more. We have ended the fight.
One more comment for Travis. He said that Van Wilder, it's basically Deadpool in college. So
yeah, it really is. So, all right. So when I was listening to this movie, one of the reasons I asked the question at the end, which one would you all watch? I haven't seen any of these films. So your fights were the main influence for me as far as which one would I want to watch. And I think you all agreed it as well. Sam's is kind of the one you want to see. It's the one I was most interested in seeing after listening to him talk about it. The intensity of the performance kind of had that solo, he's got to carry the movie on his own feel to it. And that's the one I was most interested in. And I think that's the one I'm going to pick for my winner of round 2. Congratulations, Sam.
Nice job, Sam.
What did the poll say? Was there a poll?
yes, there was a poll, and 13% said the nines, 25% for the voices, and 62% went with the buried. So
there you go. I'm 2 for 2 on what the fans want.
no one will be after your head this week, hopefully.
I just want to say that watching the Nines has somewhat killed my man crush, because that first character he does with the weird blondish tinted hair, that totally...
Yeah, the washed-up actor. Yeah, he really nailed that role. Made you hate him. Yeah, good job.
I think it was interesting. I know most of you had to prepare for this fight by watching Ryan Reynolds movies, so I apologize in advance.
No, I lied. I didn't watch the voices. I just wanted him not to.
I didn't watch either of them either.
Well,
I've only seen the voices.
I think we can all agree that we all love Deadpool, and we're glad that he made that movie, and we hope to see a lot more of Deadpool. So, all right, round 3. This is the pitch round. We call this round Pitch Perfect. This is the round where our fighters will pitch a concept that we have given them ahead of time. I'm just writing my note real quick of who goes when, and we are ready. All right. Tim Burton has confirmed that he has spoken to Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder about doing a Beetlejuice 2. So we were wondering, what would the sequel be like? So I asked the fighters to pitch the sequel to Beetlejuice 2, and this round we are going to start with Brian's pitch.
All right. Pardon me if I have to look at my notes because I want to stay on point because I want to get everything in here. We're working with a movie inside a movie concept, so try to follow me. Tim Burton is remaking Beetlejuice, not sequel. He's remaking it in his current kind of flashy CGI style with Johnny Depp as Beetlejuice. Fans and critics are obviously outraged. It's got more hate, thumbs down on YouTube trailer than even Ghostbusters 2. So Winona Ryder feels trapped in this contract. She signed on for this movie with Tim Burton and Michael Keaton. It was like this brilliant sequel that they had come up with. But then Michael Keaton died. The real-life Michael Keaton died in this movie. Winona is trapped because she feels like Depp and Burton decide to do this tribute remake instead, and she doesn't want to be the person who won't sign on to the tribute. So she's like trapped in this, and she starts to have these stress nightmares about Michael Keaton and how he's disappointed in her and what they're doing with his project. So she tries to have a crazy Hollywood seance, as you do. And she actually brings back the true spirit of Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, who proceeds to wreak havoc on the remake. Now, here's what I love about this idea, okay? I know it's wild, but get behind me here. You got a chance for Burton and Depp to kind of poke fun at themselves, stop taking themselves so seriously, realize what people are saying about them, and kind of like take a little bit of that heat off and show that they're cool. You get an awesome chance to do a takedown of the remake culture of like, why are we doing this to movies? Let's just let classics be classics. And then I also got a really cool idea that I thought would be Burton could do both styles. He could do his kind of flashy CGI style that he's doing now when he's showing us the remake, but then the actual Keaton Beetlejuice could be done in the old practical style with like cool claymation and optical effects and things like that. So that's my pitch.
Sounds great. Sam, tell us about your pitch.
Okay, so mine. Now, apparently the latest flavor of the month is crossovers, what with Men in Black and 21 Jump Street crossing over. So what I've gone with is I'm crossing over a movie that Brian just mentioned in Ghostbusters with Beetlejuice for the sequel. So essentially what we've got is the parents, Charles and Delia of Lydia, have died. So along with Barbara and Adam, they're all living in the house now as ghosts. Lydia is there, still alive. Now, there's some weird goings on and some strange stuff seems to be happening. So they sort of think, oh, maybe Beetlejuice has come back and he's causing trouble again. So Lydia calls the Ghostbusters to come and exorcise the bio-exorcist. Now, Lydia was friends with Gillian Holtzman at school, which is one of the lovely characters in the new Ghostbusters movie, which I'm sure is going to be awesome. Her and the team are currently dealing with a crisis, hence their own movie at the moment, but puts her in touch with a retired Peter Venkman, who agrees to come and help and to get the band back together by going and collecting. So we've got the little montage of, as I said last time, every movie needs a montage of going to recruit his old friends. Now, Winston hasn't been doing much. He's still doing kids' birthday parties, living these old glory days as the Ghostbuster. So he's in. Now, Ray is currently singing in a rhythm and blues review. So they need to bring him on board from doing that. Now, Egon has sadly passed away. So after years of living as a reclusive loner, Louis Tully comes in as the fourth Ghostbuster. That's right, we're bringing back Moranis. We need him back in movies. It's been far too long. Now, when they arrive at the house, they capture all the other ghosts, not realizing what they're actually tasked there to do. They don't know that they're going after Beetlejuice. So they capture all the other ghosts, and unintentionally. Now, Lydia comes back. She's not there when they come in and do that. She comes back to the house, realizes what's happened, and freaks out. So she figures the only way that we can get these ghosts back from wherever they've disappeared off to is to enlist the help of the person she wants to get rid of to try and get him back in the scene. So they can do a sort of 2-for-1. He can help bring the ghost back. Ghostbusters can capture him. And calls on Beetlejuice. But after calling his name, he doesn't show up. So after a bit of searching and a bit of research, she finds out he actually has a brother. Now, the brother's name in this is Spider-Juice. Original, but I thought of this 2 hours ago, so bear with me. Now, Spider-Juice is played in this movie because we can't have a Burton movie without Johnny Depp, so he's played by Johnny Depp. It had to be done. Now, he turns out to be pure evil and enters into a battle with the Ghostbusters, who then call on the new Ghostbusters who have finished with their crisis to form a super team of Ghostbusters. Streams across, evil is defeated, Winston dies because the black guy always dies first. And, yeah.
All right. What's the name of your movie, by the way?
Is Spider-Juice.
Okay. And, Brian, what was the name of yours?
I would go with Beetlejuice, but spelled the way they spell it on his tombstone in the movie.
Okay.
Beetlejuice.
All right. And, Tom, that means it's your turn, sir.
All right. So I know director, composer, not important. I do have the complete list of the original crew I want. Spoiler alert, it's the original. I don't want any of this 3D new CGI stuff. We need the original effects. I don't understand why both of you don't want a good Tim Burton movie. Like that's what I'm hearing from you guys. Okay, so my pitch. Sorry, I'm getting mad about your pitches. Sorry, my pitch.
I'm talking about a takedown of his own work. I'm talking about a great Tim Burton.
Let's start with your pitch. And let's start with your pitch.
We'll get there. Sorry, my fury. So we visit Lydia 20 years later. She's in the same house. I would like a small cameo from Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, because I don't think they're ghosts, so they shouldn't look too much older than they did in the Beetlejuice movies. And I'm aware that they ain't got that that Disney money for that youth serum that they're using in their movies now. But I think a small cameo, they could do it with practical effects, and I think V. Neal is an amazing makeup artist. So anyway, Lydia comes back. She goes out on an errand, comes back, and her parents have moved out long ago to Florida. It's just been her and these two. She's been going to college. She's making making a name for herself in the area and stuff like that with paranormal investigation. She's using what she's learned in the past 20 years to help others. So she comes home, and the house is a mess. It's trashed, and she goes up to the attic, and Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin know what we've seen, and we go and we look at the wall, and we see that a chalk line for a door has been started, but it ends, and so it looks like someone chomped out the chalk stick. So they obviously were trying to get help. So Lydia, knowing what she knows, finishes making the door and goes into the netherworld. And that's where this movie takes place. It is in the netherworld. We got to experience a little bit of the waiting room in the first movie. Here we get to, Tim Burton can go nuts with the original set designers and the art direction. They can add to this mythology and then see what Beetlejuice is doing. Maybe they let him out. We don't know. Let's get there. That's my pitch.
All right. Now you guys can fight it out.
All right, well, let me say that it sounds like Tom is just pitching a lot of rehash of Beetlejuice. You got the cast, you got the model, you got the door, you got the nether, and God help us if we get into what that terrible cartoon brought into the franchise.
No,
that's just
cartoons
horrifying.
Don't count. It's only about the movie.
All right, good. I'm glad you said the nether, so I got scared. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, we see the other world.
I know. I agree. I'm pitching a Tim Burton movie to bring back Tim Burton fans. Something that he can still do some of his new stuff, but he can show us what we love, what made us fall in love with him in the first place. I want your Tim Burton style from yours, Tom. I do. That's why I want to bring in,
but you're
when
pitching,
the real Beetlejuice comes to the real world, that's what I want the effects to look like. Movie effects I want to look like the Tim Burton movies.
You're pitching Tim Burton's A New Nightmare. Like, it's not an original
idea.
Yes,
that's absolutely what I'm pitching.
No, but it's
Thank
not
you
yet.
for bringing that up. New Nightmare is amazing and underrated.
It makes sense.
And that's where I got the idea.
It makes sense for Freddy Krueger. It doesn't make sense for Beetlejuice. He's not brought into dreams. Beetlejuice wouldn't have an anchor
to the real world. He crosses over from one realm to another. I think it's doable. I think that's reasonable.
All right. You have valid arguments. Sam, I don't care about your Ghostbusters universe collaboration.
Yeah, let's not tie it to that sinking ship. I agree.
Why? And you're only, like, the Ghostbusters face these, like, primal aspects of spirits. These Beetlejuice, all these other ghosts are people to be, like, a force to be reckoned with. They would not be the same experience, and they're sentient. The only one that shows sentience in the Ghostbuster movies is I want to call him Flubber. Slimer.
Called him Flubber. That's awesome.
And he's a pet. It's not the same caliber of ghost, and you would just be shitting on the lore that Burton has built for Beetlejuice. And that's what I want to explore in my movie.
Too.
I want to know what else is in the Handbook of the Damned. Yeah, there's a lot of callbacks to my movie, but it's necessary. People haven't seen this movie. This is a movie for 2 new generations that have no idea what Beetlejuice are if they haven't grown up around it. Let's Force Awakens had a lot of similarities to the other movies, but it was successful because it was respectful to its. What you guys are pitching is literally making me angry.
I understand that neither of you want to see this movie. This isn't a movie for you people. As Brian said, it's all about the
fans.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's not for the fans.
As we've seen with Alice in Wonderland, there's enough fangirls, there's enough emo kids out there that my movie's going to make money. My movie is what happens these days. That's what Burton seems to be doing.
You think Ghostbusters is going to make a lot of money?
Sometimes the worst movies make money. Look how much money the Transformers sequels made.
As much as us, the purists, don't want to see this stuff happen. I didn't want to see a remake of Alice in Wonderland after I saw the brilliant cartoon from Disney. I don't want to see a sequel, but that's coming out in a couple of weeks.
Because that's what's popular, doesn't mean we have to settle for that. We can want for more. We don't have to settle for that. We can want for something better. I want Johnny Depp and Tim Burton to acknowledge how we feel about them. I want them to take it into account and realize what they've done to us as fans.
This isn't a movie for you guys.
I don't want them to admit defeat. I want them to change the game. Prove us wrong. You don't have to do a gimmick to do that. Just do a good movie. I don't need a gimmick to make it.
He's had all those opportunities to do a good movie. Why isn't he doing that then?
Because he's not going back to what he's known for, to where his roots are. He's not doing these callbacks.
A chance to mix both, his past and his present.
He's tried, dude. He's tried, and it hasn't worked.
Now, the one thing I want to say about Brian's movie is the first thing that came to my mind when you started talking about meta and weird and movies interacting with real life is I saw Keaton do that 2 years ago. It was called Birdman. I really love that movie, but I don't think I'd want to sit through a weird meta Keaton alive dead movie character.
That make money, and we're talking about Deadpool and Birdman, two of the most critically successful and most popular movies of the last couple of years that built their houses on that meta outsider, way of thinking. I think that you're talking about what could be successful. I don't think people want another rehash of tired old franchises that they're already hating on online. Look, they want something fresh. They want their
neither one of you. Okay, let's talk about more plots. Lydia, she gets to the underworld. She meets the new caseworker that take over Gina's case. They're wondering what happened, where they've gone. They haven't talked to them in a while. And she gets assigned another ghost to help her search through the netherworld because they know she's in the netherworld, named Virgil. And they go through all these. They meet different characters. Beetlejuice was only in the original movie for like 17 minutes. And that's what was great about him, was that he was this character who was on the side, he was commenting, but he wasn't that hands-on until the time was called for that. And that's exactly what happened in my film. Yes, it's like the original. Good.
Now, you've talked about Beetlejuice not being in your movie for long and things like that. Now, anyone that listened to my pitch will notice I didn't mention Beetlejuice being in my movie at all.
So it's not a Beetlejuice movie.
Wait. So, my movie, not only does it have a montage, not only does it have successful things that are making money at the moment, making billions of dollars, we also have an after-credits scene. Now, my after-credits scene, you need to sit through 15 minutes worth of the weird and wiggly lines that Tim Burton seems to do. Yeah, you would. But you're not going to go and see it, so we're not worried about you. We're talking about the 15-year-old fangirls. So, after the credits end,
for Dark Tower. They all came out in droves for that, right?
How many 15-year-old girls watch the original Ghostbusters? That's what your big payoff is that we get the gang back
I think you're counting on you're banking on some people that aren't going to be there.
Can I explain my after credits thing, please?
You can try.
Give it up. No, I'd like to hear it.
So the credits end, and in wanders Beetlejuice. Hey, what's going on?
Wearing a
He's
robe,
got slick back hair, he's got a Hawaiian shirt, and a surfboard. That's my after credits.
Is it going to cross over with Weekend at Bernie's after that? Or
Hold on. What? Can you give me a reason, Sam, why that happens at the end, the surfboard?
Why that happens at the end is if anyone has actually read about what the original pitch for the sequel of Beetlejuice was,
cool. You should use that in your movie.
In Hawaii.
That should be actually in your movie. I don't know why you would waste to do that in a cameo at the end. Like,
I am going to
call we're setting up the franchise.
Oh, great.
Ding, ding. We are definitely done that round. Well done, guys. Those were great pitches. Ash, what can you tell me?
All right, so going for the whole Ghostbusters thing, of course, Sony owns the rights to that franchise. Bill Murray said that the experience on Ghostbusters 2 soured him from reviving his role. Plus, Rick Moranis hasn't acted since his wife passed away from cancer, so he's been spending most of his later part of his years taking care of his family and has no plans to return to Hollywood. In Beetlejuice,
Bringing him back.
It's the handbook for the recently deceased. And, there really was a planned Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian film, but Tim Burton went on to direct the Batmans and just never got around back to doing that, apparently.
And thank God for that. All right, what did Twitter have to say?
Lots of things. Axel comments that Brian destroyed his opponents in this round. Ronnie Netflix says, what if Flubber and Slimer are the same character?
Whoa.
We can make it happen.
There's good potential for Tom's pitch for the nostalgia and new elements. And Nolan Dean says, cast Tommy Wiseau as Beetlejuice. That would be a very interesting take.
That would be an interesting take.
Raul says, so it's a meta/Scream type of Beetlejuice. I'm on board for Brian's.
Because it's meta. For all
And
like
Morgan Robbins
Shout
says,
out to Raul.
no Beetlejuice 2. Let's not ruin another beloved older film, for God's sake, for far too much of this
I
going on.
agree with that.
We
I
all
agree
know
with
that
that.
answer's a cop-out. It doesn't work on our other favorite show. It wouldn't work here either.
Yeah, no, I know.
All right, well, I think we can all agree that Spider Juice is not going to win round 3. Mostly because, as interesting as it was, I think we can all agree it's more of a Ghostbusters revival that you pitched than a Beetlejuice movie, and Beetlejuice isn't even showing up until the after credit scene. So for me, it is between Brian and Tom. Brian, I found your pitch pretty interesting. I like the sort of Scream New Nightmare feel of it, but I think they said it. I think Tom was the one who mentioned that it's Birdman. We kind of did see that concept already, but it still it has that Birdman feel. What I like about Tom's is, for one, he's the only person who did not add Johnny Depp to the cast, which earned him some points for me. And I like the idea that we're going back to a Tim Burton that we all really love to watch. I think that practical idea of going into the netherworld and seeing more of a continuation of the story that we all know is the way to go with Beetlejuice 2. So, Tom, you are winning round 3. Well done. Great pitches by everyone there.
Ashley, did you catch my Dante's Inferno reference?
I might have been slipping in and out of the wormhole of finding out things, so when I go back, I'm sure I'll catch it. The poll disagreed. They went with the satire at 57%, and then 43% for the Netherworld Adventure. No love for the Ghostbusters crossover.
I'm very
We
sorry.
obviously don't have any 15-year-old emo girls in our fan base.
Yeah. Is that a surprise to anyone? It's not a surprise to me. All right, guys, good job. Let's move on to round 4. All right, round 4 is our Hollywood Shuffle Anything Can Happen round. So we are going to fight in just a moment. All right. We wanted to know what movie flopped at the box office but should not have. And we are going to start with Sam on this round.
Okay, so the movie I've gone with that flopped at the box office but shouldn't have is a movie from 1967. It won several Academy Awards. It was based on a Newbery Medal-winning book series, which is the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children, for those playing at home. I've gone with the original Dr. Dolittle. Don't bring up the remake of Dr. Dolittle or whatever you want to call that with Eddie Murphy. That doesn't exist. This movie was made for $17 million. It made back $9 million. It nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. It shouldn't have done that. You have an amazing movie, an amazing concept based on a beloved children's book series. You have a guy that 2 years earlier won the best actor for a musical that he'd done, playing another character in another musical. You have he's won 2 Tony Awards. So once again, doing a musical with this caliber of actor with Rex Harrison, this movie should have succeeded. The problem with this movie was that it had several things go wrong. One was it went over budget. they couldn't reunite the cast, not the cast, the writers that had made My Fair Lady so successful only 2 years prior. One of the writers retired, the other one went on to try and pen a script for this movie, and a year later he'd been procrastinating so much that they fired him and brought in a guy that had never worked on a screenplay before. He'd done several musicals, plays, but never a screenplay. Now, they did all their test screenings were done mainly with adults and not children, which was the target audience for this film. I saw this film as a child, and I absolutely loved this movie. Another thing that it didn't have going for it was it opened the same weekend as The Jungle Book, so it's come into direct competition for a children's movie, which led to an ultimate...
animated, right?
Yeah, Disney's animated The Jungle Book. So obviously, tough competition when I know me as a kid, I'd prefer to go and see a cartoon with singing animals than go and see real animals, even though I love both. I love both movies. So those are some of the reasons why this movie flopped, but it really shouldn't have.
Wonderful. All right. Let's move next to Tom. What did you pick, Tom?
Treasure Planet. Are you kidding me? This movie is an amazing adaptation of a story that we all know growing up. It's legendary. The cast, Joseph Gordon-Levitt coming right out of Third Rock from the Sun, and we know what he's capable of now. This was a great bridging point for him. Emma Thompson, Martin Short, David Hyde Pierce, a very diverse cast, all great. It got a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, 69% Rotten Tomatoes, and 60s Meteor. This movie created the virtual set. The cameras in a 360 thing around you. Treasure Planet, it was the first one to execute that. They're also the first major studio feature to be released in regular and IMAX theaters at the same time. This movie was an innovator, and for some reason, it just didn't, and it didn't lose a lot. When we hear about Sam's and he's talking millions, let's keep in mind that it's 1960s, and $1 million then is $7 million now. So this movie should not have flopped, but it's considered a flop because it just got right under.
What was your movie made for, and what did it do at the box office?
Would you like that information?
Yeah, if you got it.
I have it here.
I don't know where I wrote it down.
Treasure Planet was produced for $140 and made $109.
Okay. All right. And did you have anything else you want to say initially, Tom, or you want me to move on?
No, great cast, innovative visual effects, great score by James Newton Howard, he did all the Shyamalan scoring. It had a great tie-in song by the Goo Goo Dolls, I'm Still Here. I still rock out to that. Everything about this movie was innovative, fun, creative, and yet for some reason, I don't know. Critics love it. It just didn't make money.
All right. Hey, Brian, what did you pick?
I went with Cowboys and Aliens from, I believe, 2011, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just start kind of with going over some of the reasons this movie should have succeeded, what this movie had going for it. At the time, obviously an amazing cast, even despite how people, because I know there's backlash against Daniel Craig and against Harrison Ford right now. People feel like they don't try, or Daniel Craig can't carry a movie. Agree with those statements, but I'm not here to argue them. We can talk about the supporting cast in this movie: Sam Rockwell, Paul Dano, Olivia Wilde, Keith Carradine, Adam Beach, Clancy Brown. This is A-list talent, even down to their character actor choices. Now you had Jon Favreau coming hot off of Iron Man and Iron Man 2. And despite how you feel about the rushed story of Iron Man or how it was a setup movie for the MCU, it's still a well-directed film. It's, this is clearly a guy who has a handle on big-budget special effects and does them well. It was adapted from a well-regarded comic graphic novel. It wasn't a piece of it's not a masterpiece. It's probably a stronger premise, which is why I don't think the movie adheres as tightly to the comic book as some of our favorite adaptations probably do. But this wasn't an all-time classic. This was a strong premise that they adapted. And then I think one of the things it did best was really balance the sci-fi and Western elements. best compliment I can give this movie at times is that when I was watching it, I forgot that I was watching a sci-fi movie. These beautiful Western vistas and these characterizations really made me feel like I was in a Western. And then when something like an alien or a spaceship or a laser gun on a guy's wrist come out, you're like, oh, wow, it felt natural, but it also, because they made that Western world so livable. As far as Treasure Planet goes, I think Treasure Planet is a beautiful looking movie. I think they maybe were trying to Disney-fy some anime elements and try to kind of copy what was hip and popular at the time. Kids were starting to pick up more on that influence, and they wanted to bring that to Disney. I think maybe if they'd have focused a little more on an actual good Treasure Island adaptation, the movie might have done a little bit better. Yeah, but I think they scared people away because they didn't understand the kind of weird sci-fi thing. They might have had more success.
It was definitely more successful of combining the two genres than your movie was. If I want a Western sci-fi, I'm going to watch Firefly. The only reason yours is because there's horses, and then all of a sudden there's aliens out of the thing. The characters are not in it. They have a huge cast. I agree with you. Sam Rockwell is the man in that movie, but he's a man in every movie. Maybe if they didn't have such a big cast and they could concentrate on one for more than 5 seconds at a time, it would be better.
I thought they built lots of good relations. The relationship between Adam Beach and Harrison Ford in that movie makes me tear up every time.
Olivia Wilde looked checked out that entire movie.
Yeah, but that's not,
Well, you argued she had a great performance.
I said she's a great actress, and this was a great cast.
Now, that's the thing. You're talking about great actors. Now, you've talked about Ford and Daniel Craig. Now, that's one of the areas where this movie has banked on these two stars to make money. But you need to look at, this movie was made in 2011, and if I go back through Harrison Ford's IMDb, we've got to basically go back to 2002, since he had a good movie with K-19 The Widowmaker. And in between that and this movie, he made Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which everyone hated. It's universally hated.
Though.
Right, and
well,
I'm not
necessarily his fault,
I'm not arguing
you're banking on a guy that's been in this movie
that's on their own.
Universally hated.
People think that Craig can't carry a movie outside of the Bond franchise, and Harrison Ford's not the star he used to be, but there were other things in this movie to like. The problem is, what people hated about this movie was its name. Everybody basically like, that's dumb, what a dumb premise. Well, it's like The Last Samurai. People hated on it before they even saw it.
And this is where it falls down, because you basically replace the word cowboys and aliens with cowboys v aliens, and this was the era from 2008 through to 2011 where we had monsters v aliens, ninjas v zombies, ninjas v vampires, aliens v ninjas, aliens v avatars. There was all these movies at this time that were all mixing of genres. And if we want to even go back further, hybrid Western movies in terms of sci-fi hybrid Westerns are known to fail. Jonah Hex failed. Wild Wild West failed. If you're making this movie expecting to make money, there's something wrong with you.
Sam, I will say, look, your movie does not surprise me at all that it's a flop. Looking at its history, it might not be the film's fault, but the way the studio handled it, I can at least understand. They pushed over 300 different products and ended up with over $200 million of merch that never sold. They tried to do a roadshow release, and they lost another $11 million. Keep in mind, that's $7 million for every $1 million today. So that is a huge amount of money. I'm surprised
my
at all.
My grandma bought a jigsaw puzzle. I did the Dr. Dolittle jigsaw puzzle as a kid.
That's fine.
I'm surprised.
But you say that it's based off of such a great book. The same year, the book was pulled out of public schools because of its racist undertones. So, yes, I mean, there's so many things wrong with your book.
They cut all the racism out of the movie. So we're not talking about books that we established before.
That's why it hurt your sales. That's why it hurt Dr. Dolittle's sales, was because of the bad press.
And I do think it has to be said that if the more memorable version of your movie is the one with Eddie Murphy in it, minus points.
Oh yeah, but Brian, the same thing with your movie though.
That's a totally different movie.
I agree. It's the one people remember and hate.
Your whole movie is a huge payoff to make that bracelet relevant. Like, if it's alien technology, why don't the aliens have the same technology as that bracelet? The aliens are Geiger-esque ripoffs. The sorcerers aren't even like, they're not even trying to be original in this movie. Everything is just slammed together, and just because there's less, like a character delivers less dialogue doesn't mean it's better dialogue. Like, this movie has so many problems.
I want to expand on something that Brian...
I didn't say it was a perfect movie. I said it shouldn't have flopped. It had the elements in place to be a hit.
Yeah, it was second to Smurfs on the opening day. I mean, when you're going to see Smurfs in Cowboys and Aliens.
Not that is the Smurfs. Jeez.
I can't.
I'm not trying to fight against that.
All right, let's get some final thoughts here, Sam. Let's closing arguments. Why is your movie better than these other guys for this?
I just had some things to bring up before I talked about that. In relation to something that Brian said, in relation to a traditional take on this movie. Now, we had a back and forth earlier about quoting film critics, so I'll quote Roger Ebert this time. Is that renowned enough for you, Brian?
Yes, that's a name I've heard before.
Right. So, Treasure Planet, he said, a traditional take would have been much more exciting and less gimmicky than what we got. Now, a gimmicky concept that Disney also did that I prefer much more after actually watching this movie the other night is Muppets Treasure Island. That's far more traditional and a much better movie than whatever the clusterfuck this thing I watched the other night was. I'm sitting there, I'm 15 minutes into this movie, and it's like, what the hell is this? I've got Niles Crane.
Look, the reason why Muppets is more successful is because, and
original
don't get me wrong,
and whatever. It's like, no, that was directly Niles Crane, and I'm not just talking about David Hyde Pierce's voice. That was Niles Crane playing a space dog thing, alien. Now,
just because it added something different doesn't make it good. Just because you mash together doesn't make it. That's what I'm saying about Cowboys and Aliens. They blended it better. You can feel the Western. You can feel the Western Cowboys and Aliens.
They went so out of their way to make Treasure Planet more believable that it wasn't like this. It's a place where science fiction and old stories can combine, but yet stay away from that futuristic, glossed over tech in your movie. And that's why they went completely out of their way so they could go and find these wind-up mechanisms and stuff.
They
can record those.
Steampunk on it.
So
back to my final thoughts.
Yeah.
Once again, you're talking about originality and things. This movie had far too many elements from other Disney movies. I'm watching this as a huge Disney fan. I'm seeing elements of Beauty and the Beast with the mother in the inn or pub or whatever she's running. I don't know what that establishment was. It was full of weird and wonderful people.
If you read the book...
I'm not talking about a book. I'm talking about a movie that I watched.
It's based on a book.
But not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
How?
We have a Tarzan vibe with the character of Jim. They had very similar facial structure and attitudes and jumping around and swinging around. We've got Billy Bones, who was basically a weird alien version of Joanna Goanna from Rescuers Down Under. We have the pink goo thing that morphed into different things, which is a direct rip-off of Tinkerbell.
Let's talk about pink things. What about that pink giant sea thing that conveniently can hold, like, your movie is the Pushy Pulu, the two-headed llama, like, these things, at least...
Hey, I actually thought that was real as a kid, and I wanted one.
Well, I'm sorry. You know, I saw this movie when I was a kid, too, and there was a critic who said, Leonard Maitland. He said, oh, this is Maitland's from Beetlejuice. Anyway, this movie has one merit. If you have unruly children, it may put them to sleep, which was the exact reason it was used in my babysitter's house.
All right, Tom, do you have any final
thoughts?
I have final thoughts, yeah. This movie...
unoriginal with...
No, it's final thoughts.
Let me get some more final thoughts so we can finish up this round. Tom, go ahead.
You mentioned, there's some similarities to Tarzan. Yeah, it's called when you work on a new form of visual and you go farther. This movie is innovative. It created new technology. It had great storytelling. I don't understand. Like, the cast alone is great. John Silver. I understand your argument with the Muppets. The Muppets is successful because you're able to put those Muppet jokes in there because there's like an inside joke when you watch Muppet movies, and that's why that Treasure Island was successful. But it was not successful adaptation of the movie Treasure Island or of the book Treasure Island. Treasure Planet was able to put everything on a new scale and on a new scope and successfully tell the story the same way.
Brian?
I'm not going to argue which of these movies is the best one. I'm talking about which one should have been the most successful. the one that had the elements in place. The star power, a strong director, a strong story. You know, Treasure Island, Disney movies make money almost no matter what. The fact that this one couldn't do it should be a testament to how much people just couldn't get behind this idea. And I just think that people didn't give Cowboys and Aliens, they prejudged it before they ever even gave it a chance. And I think if people would have gone into the theater to actually see it, it would have gotten some good word of mouth. They made their judgment ahead of time. They didn't look at what was on the table as far as talent, and they just went off of what they saw from the poster, and they just walked away. And it's a shame, because that movie is underrated. There's some amazing performances, it's beautifully shot, and it's just a fun sci-fi movie.
All right.
So do I get to give my actual final thoughts, because I kept getting cut off during one?
You have one more quick thing to say?
Yeah, so just as a whole, in relation to Dr. Dolittle, the other two, like I said, there's so many reasons why those movies shouldn't have made money. I've listed them all already. Dr. Dolittle is a movie that was a victim of circumstance, and it should have made money. It was a good story. There was great actors, great talent. Everything about it is beautiful. It may be a bit long and things like that, but that would have been something that test screenings could have fixed if they were done right, rather than throwing this at adults for a kids' movie. Like I said, it's all about it being a victim of circumstance.
All right.
And a film studio, it should have made heaps of money.
Ash, help me out with this one. What do we got?
All right. Factually, more opinions than like facts that were wrong. I mean, everyone pretty much nailed it with that. I did pull some information about like speculation of why each film may have bombed at the box office. If you need that, if you don't, that's good. I could just save it.
What do you have?
For Treasure Planet, it was released around the same time as Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. That was already in its third week, and so that movie was remaining strong. It came out over Treasure Planet came out around Thanksgiving, so with that, with Harry Potter staying strong, and then when the Santa Claus 2 came out, it was just kind of families were going to those movies instead, and it was one of Disney's biggest financial losses since 2011. For Cowboys and Aliens, it had a lot to do with maybe the marketing of the film, where people weren't sure like what the actual premise was, and maybe thinking it was more of like a parody film, and just lots of things to set against that one. And then for Dr. Dolittle, they did so much tie-in merchandise and all of the other behind-the-scenes issues, and it went way over budget. So actually, it was such a critical failure that Rex Harrison, it ruined his film career too. So lots of interesting facts about these.
What did Twitter have to say on this round?
Twitter had some good suggestions. Hamza Juicer said that Hugo and Children of Men are great newer movies that surprisingly flopped. Nolan Dean said Scott Pilgrim's a perfect movie. It has action, romance, but again, not one that was successful. At least according to him, I don't remember. I don't think the box office, or maybe it was critically panned.
It was critically panned while it was in theaters, but it found a lot of life afterwards.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these movies, or at least some of the ones when I was doing initial research, is like there's ones that are, they did bad initially, but then they found their following like on home video, like Office Space, that kind of thing. So, and then we do have a poll as well.
All right. Well, this was a tough round for me, but I think the easy pick to eliminate from the list is Brian. For two reasons.
Nobody can support me. Nobody loves Cowboys and Aliens.
And Tom was the reason. He hit you twice really hard with Firefly Does It Better, which I would agree. And he also, his list of Something v. Or was that Sam? Something v. Something. Yeah, the
Sam,
Something v. Somethings. Yeah, so both of you pretty much knocked out Cowboys and Aliens. So for me, it came down between Sam and Tom. And I think what's going to put me over the edge was I found out more during the fight about about all the factors that kept Dr. Dolittle from being a successful film, and I didn't hear enough about that from Tom's film. It competed against The Jungle Book, which is a huge issue. And Tom, I think you gave him a point when you said that about the controversy for real life issues that were taking place at the time around that book and it being pulled from schools also contributes to reasons why the movie would not be doing well critically, even though it's a great film. So, Sam, you're winning the point for round 4, and that means you are going forward to the lightning round.
I can't believe Sam didn't mention they won an Oscar.
He did.
He said that.
He said that.
He did? Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't hear him.
Yeah, that was another
Well,
thing
yeah.
that was really controversial. Is like people couldn't believe that movie was nominated,
Well,
let alone
they
won.
pretty much bought them.
Yeah.
Yes, that happened a lot back then.
It wasn't so much the ones that it won that was controversial as the fact that it was nominated to Best Picture. Because the song was a really good song, Talk to the Animals, but yeah.
What was the poll?
The poll results, let me pull that up real quick. It went away. All right, so 18% for the original Dr. Dolittle, 45% for Treasure Planet, and 37% for Cowboys and Aliens.
All right, so I've had 2 where I've agreed and 2 where I've disagreed. But, Sam, you are definitely moving into the lightning round. So just so everybody at home knows, Sam's definitely going through. We are not carrying points over. However, if a person gets 3 or more points during the regular fighting, they earn a special bonus that they can use during the lightning round. So, Sam, there is still something to play for here as we go into round 5. This will determine who joins you. Unless
There's
we have
always something to play for. I'm not going to give up on an argument.
All right. This is our personal best round. I was doing a little research trying to figure out what we would go with questions, and I believe Ashley helped me come up with this idea. But Sean Bean has died in a third of his movies. And I wanted to know, what is Sean Bean's best death scene in film? So we are taking out Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. We cannot use his beheading. And on this round, we are going to start with Tom.
Has anyone seen The Field?
I've seen the death scene.
But I'll say yes for fun.
I've seen the death scene. I haven't seen the whole movie.
Oh my God! First off, yes, he's been
I've seen the
killed.
death scene.
He's been killed like at least 25 times. I have an actual like he's been shot 9 times. He's been like impaled 5 times. Like a lot of it is the same old, same old. It doesn't have the same effect. This movie builds up such a story, and you seeing that out of the scope of what the movie represents. It's a lot of like different like undertones of multiple meanings and stuff like that. That's the most entertaining death to see ever. If for those who are not, you see Sean Bean running around for no reason on this clip face. This is if you haven't seen the movie. For no clip face. And then all of a sudden you see this old guy screaming at these cows, and the stampede of cows is going at Sean Bean, and Sean Bean's like, do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go left? They push him off a cliff. Sean Bean goes like flying down into the ocean, and you just see cows and sheep coming down with him. It is at least the most entertaining, and if you watch the movie, and I'll explain why when it comes up, it actually is the most impactful Sean Bean death for me.
All right. Brian, who did you choose?
I chose Boromir from Fellowship of the Ring. Oh, this guy, we got a Boromir hater already in the house. Well, let's talk about the reason you feel that way. That's because Boromir is a character that actually has an arc in Lord of the Rings.
You think that, but he doesn't.
The character is important to
No, it has
the
an
story of the Fellowship of the Ring. The character is very important to that story because he's the one where we see the actual effects of the ring on a human. You know, everyone else, we know what the effects would be when someone powerful gets the ring, but he is there to represent the threat of man miswielding this power yet again. You know, he gets to start out as a, you know, you groan and you call him a tool, but really he's a likable character. He plays with the hobbits and tries to teach them to fight. He has a moment with them when Gandalf dies where he's the only one sympathetic and everybody else is pushing him. He wants them to get a chance to grieve a little. He feels bad at the end, the way he has his moment with Aragorn. I just feel like he's not only has one of the great character arcs, but he's the only impactful hero death in the whole series. His death, and by the way, he goes out like a boss. He doesn't fall. He gets shot multiple times with arrows. And by the way, those arrows, I watched that again, they're like the size of a roll of nickels. They're hairy. Like, he's got these giant arrows stuck in him, and just as he's about to go down, he gets up and fights again, and then as he's about to get killed, he gets saved by Aragorn, and they get to have a beautiful moment together. It's a death that actually resonates throughout the trilogy. It affects the relationship between Faramir and Denethor. It has repercussions. There's no other death of a heroic character in that whole trilogy that you can say that about. And not, I would say, arguably, it's one of the most impactful deaths in film. I think that is a memorable moment from Lord of the Rings and from film in general.
All right, Sam, what did you pick?
Now, Brian, you said he had an ark. They had these little boats that went down the river. I wouldn't say they're an ark. Noah had an ark. That's my joke.
Wordplay.
I'm allowed to have fun. I'm going through the lightning round. This is going to be fun.
Nice.
Okay, so you've both picked deaths. They're all right deaths. Now, I picked a movie that doesn't give you one Sean Bean death. It effectively gives you 4 for the price of one. I've gone with number 006, Alec Trevelyan, in GoldenEye. Now, okay, so we've got the first time he dies, he gets shot by a Russian, I think he's Russian, whatever rank, captain, commander, whatever he is.
They're Russians.
Yeah, we see him die in the facility, which is a great level in GoldenEye, the game. The facility then explodes. So if he wasn't dead from the gunshot, he's now dead in the explosion, which Mr. James Bond screwed his good friend over and changed the timer from 6 minutes to 3. Let's not even talk about how much of a dick move that was, Mr. Brosnan. Now, after that, we find out that, no, he didn't die in the explosion, but it did terribly burn his face after that dick move. He comes back as Janice. Now, we then get to the end of the film. We have a fight on the, I think they call it a cradle. It's this thing hovering above a satellite dish, where James Bond gets the upper hand after a fairly decent fight, has him hanging by the foot, and then the classic one-liner before we're going to kill someone. For England, James? No, for me. And he dropped. I'm going to judge distance. I want to say to be somewhere between 50 and 100 metres. I don't know what that is in feet for you American folks that don't know what the metric system is. But it's a fairly significant drop. But so you think that he's dead, he's dropped to his death. But no, we zoom in, he coughs, he splutters, he rolls over, he's still alive. What? Only to then have a cradle, steel, metal, fire, fall from the sky and land on him. And if he's not dead now, there is something wrong. So that is why it is the best Sean Bean death. We didn't just get 1 death, we got 4. And they were all amazing. Now, Tom, you talked about the field. The worst thing about your death was, I'd liken this to Playboy TV or other softcore porn. There's no money shot. You don't actually see him die. He falls off, there's a 5-second, ah! And then 5 minutes later, we're looking at his body lying on the ground with a pool of blood. I want to see him hit the deck. So many movies have done falls where you see, Les Mis is probably the best example I can think of, where you literally hear the comical thud of Russell hitting the ground. Thud. That's what I want.
It's comical doesn't make the death less impactful. This movie...
I want a money shot, though. I need my money shot.
Well, then go to your softcore porn. That's not what this movie is.
That's the problem. There is no money shot in softcore porn.
Brilliant... Well, yeah, sorry. My bad. This movie is it follows this man named McCabe, who has worked this field all of his life. His hands are battered. He's lost one son to suicide a few years ago, back. And ever since then, he's become disconnected. He's given up on his son. His son, Sean Bean, he's given up on him. He doesn't think he'll ever become a man. He hasn't spoken to his wife in 18 years since the kid died. And all he has is this field. And the widow who owns the field, who lets them farm on it, decides to sell it. So he goes and everyone in this community respects the father. They're like, oh, he's a worker, but this American comes in, and he wants to buy the property to make a highway, which drives this guy crazy. Sean Bean trying to do what's right for his dad, tries to put pressure on the American. Eventually, the dad loses it, kills the American, and then Bean is trying to get out of here, and the dad just snaps. And he's the one who makes the cows stamp. He's wiping them. He's like, he's literally driving his livelihood and his family, which are one and the same. That's what this whole movie is about. The field is his family. If you split up the field, you are splitting up his family. And the amount of depth that Sean Bean puts in this movie to try to reach his father. There's one scene where he's like, well, what age did my brother, or how old was I when my brother died? And he's like, I don't know. Like, that's just the dumbest question. And he goes, well, how old was my brother when he died? And he goes, oh, he was 13 years, 6 months, and 24 days. It shows such the disconnect, and that this son is just betrayed by his father's madness. So, yeah, you didn't get your money shot. He didn't get but the fact that it happened at all should be the payoff.
Yeah, but the fact that they took all this dramatic tension and they took all this father-son angst and then they paid it off with maybe what could be argued as the funniest Sean Bean death, but not the best Sean Bean death.
It's funny out of context. Watch the movie. You can appreciate it on two different levels. You can watch it and be like, ha ha ha. I want to concentrate on Boromir because I don't want you to think that I'm being unfair.
I want to concentrate on Boromir too because that is the only impactful death on this list. We're talking about a redemptive moment for a man who realizes his own weaknesses too late. He still fights to the end for the right cause. He still puts his life down.
It shows how selfish he is. The whole thing is his selfishness. Boromir is only there to foil as like a contrast to Aragorn. Aragorn is supposed to be the prime example of humanity, so we need him to be flawed. Defending Merry and Pippin may have shown him as best, but because we know of Boromir's thirst for glory, he's sacrificing himself would be the most selfish thing he could have done. We see him being selfish at Minas Tirith. We see him trying to take the ring. He's being selfish when he's asking his father about becoming king. He fled Gondor. This is not a character who is just made one mistake and then he's flawed and then he has a redeeming arc. This guy screws up, and it's only because he only cares about his own glory. He doesn't even care about the glory of his house because he would rather outshine his father.
That's why Boromir's character is important, to show the power that the ring can have over a lesser man.
He's like that before the ring.
But we don't know that. We never see him before the ring.
We hear about Minas Tirith.
We see him as a responsible brother. We see him as a good son. We don't see him being a bad person until he's in the presence of the ring.
Good son. He's only a good son because his father's shit.
Aragorn is a better man, and that's why Boromir is important to show us that. And then at the end, he's redemptive because he does feel bad. He has that moment with Aragorn where he realizes that he's weaker and he realizes that he's less, but he still was trying to do what he thought was best for his world and for his people.
Yeah,
that death impacts the whole series. It's not just that movie. It ripples throughout the whole series because it affects the power struggle in Minas Tirith. It affects his brother and his father. It's a very important moment in the series.
Now, with this, we're not talking about the most impactful death. We're talking about the best death. Now, Brian, you're talking about Boromir. He was shot with a couple of arrows. That
3 arrows, done so. Big ones.
Do you know who shot him?
Yeah, it was the head of the Uruk-hai. I can't remember the guy. No, I don't remember.
Now, Brian,
I can tell you.
Brian, how many arrows was it?
Let us know.
How many arrows was it?
3 arrows.
3, right? Okay.
3. So but, he didn't have that. I know he didn't have that generic falling villain death like we all love from Die Hard and RoboCop.
Wait.
And then they realized that was generic, so they dropped something sharp on him too. That was really interesting. It really
we're not talking about Goldeneye at the moment. We're talking about getting shot with arrows.
I want to talk about Goldeneye too.
Being shot with arrows has been done to death. More puns.
It's 5 of Sean Bean's deaths. Him being impaled is 5 of his deaths out of all 25.
The other two deaths in this fight are both falling deaths. Just so.
Hang on. We're talking about arrows here.
In this fight, I still picked the most original one.
If we go back to the 80s, we have Mad Max 2, where not only is someone arrow pulls out of himself and then uses it to shoot back. we go to this movie, yes, Boromir's shot with 3 arrows. Ooh, 3 arrows, he gets up and he kills a couple more. Ooh.
You should be okay.
Now, we then go to Troy with Achilles. Achilles is shot with 4 arrows.
I didn't realize that I had to compare his death against every death in cinema. I thought it was only Sean Bean.
No, but we're talking about whether it's the best death or not, and we're establishing... we won't just talk about all the cinema.
Your other deaths in Sean Bean's library.
Yeah, but I'm just getting some context here.
Yeah, here's the context. We can only count one of your deaths because we know he doesn't die those other times. Yeah, they're misdirects.
As you go through the movie.
3 red herrings. 3 red herrings and 1 death.
There you go.
If we want to go back to Boromir and him being shot with arrows, Boromir, the one that resonates to me as this is not great, this is not original, let's go back to 1978 to the animated version of Lord of the Rings. In that movie, Boromir is first shot with 3 arrows in the heart. He pulls the 3 arrows out of his heart, he drops them to the ground, he kills 5 orcs. He's then shot with 2 more arrows.
Sean Bean?
He then stands up. I'm establishing something here. He then stands up. He then kills 3 or 4 more orcs. He's then shot a 3rd time. He gets up again. He then kills several more orcs. He then is shot twice more and lies up against a tree and blows his horn, and that's when the orcs grab the hobbits and run away. He's not saved. He's not... You want to talk about impactful, you want to talk about best. That's not even the best version of Boromir's death.
I don't know. I think
anyone who's a fan... Anyone who's a fan of the books
added more emotional weight to it by giving us a scene with Boromir and giving him a scene with Aragorn and giving us some really important conversation that gives us an idea of how that character is feeling. I think maybe it was done better in Fellowship of the Ring.
There's no shock factor in either of your movies because anyone who's a fan of the things, no Boromir's gonna die. It doesn't. I
didn't know.
Tom, make this your final thought.
Okay. I feel like not only is this an overdone death, at least none of us picked him getting shot because that happens more than anything with a gun.
Yeah.
But I watched, like, I'm gonna admit the cows had me rolling. Then I watched the movie, and the amount of depth that goes into a setup for such a chaotic way to die, and the impact it has on family. There's I mean, okay, 006 has a revenge plot against James Bond, or a spy has a vendetta plot against James Bond. Cool, like that's a new idea. Again, Boromir didn't surprise me. This movie, I knew the death was coming, and it surprised me how much it was impactful to me. And I felt like your other ones fell short. There's no surprise in either one of them because they kept trying to...
Sorry. Sorry.
No, he fell long. Remember, like 100 meters.
Brian, what are your final thoughts?
You know, I think Alex Trevelyan was an interesting character at the time just because the twist of him being 006 was what people got into. I think he boils down to your basic Bond villain, and he dies a very basic death. He falls. That's what villains do in movies. They fall from tall things. And somebody was probably like, oh yeah, didn't they do that in Die Hard? Okay, drop something sharp on him too. Whatever, he fell, we dropped a sharp thing. So we're a little different, that's fine. I don't have a problem with the field, except like I said, I feel like it's a little bit gimmicky. It's yet another fall, and they're like, how are we going to make this interesting? I don't know, maybe make it like the Lion King and some, like, the Stampede pushes him off? I don't know. We'll come up with something. I'm just talking about a death in the Fellowship of the Ring of a character who's important to the story, who you feel for, and then whose death goes on to impact the series and have an effect on not only
you. They never talk about
it. They do. They talk about it all the time.
Maybe.
All right, Sam, give me your final thoughts.
Okay, so my final thoughts. So with the field, from what I've seen of the death scene, how much can you rip off from Monty Python and the Holy Grail? We rip off the comical fall off a cliff from the Bridge of Death. We rip off the flying animals from the catapult scene. That's just a rip-off of Monty Python. Come up with an original idea. As Brian just stated, The Lion King is a much more impactful stampede-driven death. that was also a horribly shot death scene in terms of you've got this old bloke yelling incoherently in, I'm assuming, Irish, based on the accent. I have no idea what he's actually yelling. It's like, what? And then you've got these random shots of cows and then people, you can't actually see him coming up towards the cliff or anything. One minute it looks like he's running on something that goes off to the horizon where there's grass and everything, so it's like, how does he all of a sudden fall off a cliff? Where am I? It was horribly shot, given everything I can to borrow me. If I want a death by arrow scene, I want Leonidas from 300. He gets killed with 1,000,000 arrows.
But
stuff your 3 arrows.
Not played by Sean
Now,
Bean.
Golden. I know this is true, but like I said, not the best death for Sean Bean. The best death is in GoldenEye. Like I said, we have the Mr. X, but essentially you don't know that until these Mr. X come back again. So you get to witness, watching it the first time, him die 4 times. Well, the second one sort of only counts if you sort of think that he hasn't died the first time when he was shot. Now, you're talking about impactful. This is a character whose parents were betrayed by the country that he loved, and so it's based on revenge. It's not just about James Bond. There's the revenge element with James Bond, but he has had it in for England for his parents' deaths or whatever happened there for the entire movie, and he was always going to betray his own country. That's what makes the games so more meaningful when he's actually dropped. Like I said, you get this, it's about the unexpected. That's what I'd love from a death scene. You think someone's dead and then, no, oh, he's back again, what's going to happen now? And like I said, just the look on his face when he realizes when this huge mass of metal and fire is plummeting towards him after he's just survived a fall that obviously should have killed him. He's just like, yeah, I'm dead.
All right. Ashley.
Yes.
What kind of facts do you have for this movie?
All right. Well, Sean Bean has died 25 times over the course of film and television appearances. So about, literally a third, like you said. He has died various ways, and shot is, of course, the most frequent style of death by bullets, not arrows. He's been stabbed a lot. He's been hanged twice. He's been impaled on a boat anchor. All sorts of fun ways that Sean Bean has died.
That boat anchor one was my second choice.
And he's been quartered as well, which is the one that Joe talked about earlier.
That was really good.
Black Death, yeah. Black Death is a good one.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Other than that,
what did Twitter have to say?
All right, Twitter had to say, Travis said that falling deaths are great, never get old because it's like Greek mythology, like the old saying, pride before the fall. Janine says, one does not simply choose any Sean Bean death, and she quoted Watch Mojo, which has a Sean Bean ranked deaths ranked on their video site. You can, again, Joe saying the Black Death. Morgan Robinson saying, yeah, his death in GoldenEye is awesome too, but it doesn't have the emotional impact of Boromir's for me. And if you want me to read any more, let me know.
No, that's good. All right, guys. So Sam, I think the thing that sums it up is you can only die once, and he really does only die officially once in that movie, but. I think that's his death in that movie is the reason that all of the Pierce Brosnan 007s are forgettable. So it is between Tom and Brian. One of you will be moving on. And unfortunately, Tom, I have to go with Boromir on this one. The cows and jumping off the cliff didn't have nearly the impact to the film that Boromir's
if you watch the film
10-minute death scene had. Now I listened to your argument for it, but I believe Brian really brought it home. He told the story of why that actual death, all of the things that took place during that death, were significant to the death and how it impacted the entire series of 3 films. So I have to give Brian the final point, which means...
# no money shot.
Yeah, there was no money shot. Which means Brian and Sam are going through to the lightning round. Congratulations, guys. All right, so the lightning round.
Brutal.
Tom, I'm going to need your help on this one. Ash, same thing. I will try not to. Oh, what was the poll for that one?
The poll was 10% for the field 80% for Lord of the Rings and 10% for GoldenEye 007. So
GoldenEye was a great video game, though, I will say that. All right, so our lightning round. So we have 5 questions. It's going to be best out of 5. And each round you'll have 15 seconds for your initial fight, 5 seconds rebuttal.
we're doing 15 instead of 20?
Oh, I'm sorry, 20. I did
Okay,
say 20 tonight. Whatever you have set. What do you have set?
I have 20 set because that's what we've been doing. So.
All right, 20 it is. Sorry about that.
No, it's cool.
They changed on the other show, and now I'm all confused. All right, ready? So round 1 of the lightning round. What is the best Nicolas Cage movie?
Con Air. I only heard half the question, so I'm hoping that's right.
It's best Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, I went Con Air.
Okay.
The Rock.
All right, and I heard Con Air first, so that is Sam. Your time starts when you start talking.
So Con Air is such a great movie. It's got a great soundtrack. It's got a great ensemble of different actors, but it is led by Nicolas Cage, who puts in a great performance of a guy caught in the wrong place at the wrong time several times. First in the bar fight, then on the plane. He's sort of got to save the day from the inside. He's just this innocent guy trying to get home to his daughter.
All right, that's time.
Brian?
I think The Rock does everything that Con Air does, but slightly better. It's got an amazing cast. It's got one of the best villains of all time, Nicolas Cage, in maybe the best Michael Bay movie there's ever been. The action is actually secondary to the amazing character work being done between Cage and Sean Connery. I just rewatched this movie.
All right, Sam, a rebuttal?
So in The Rock, I see Sean Connery as the standout rather than Nicolas Cage. The Rock is an alright premise, but it's stuck in Alcatraz. Put the bunny back in the box. Con Air is the far better movie.
Cool. Time.
Brian?
I think Con Air is a fun movie, but it pushes itself over the cliff of disbelief, whereas The Rock has a similar tight action movie, but has in a more realistic way and done slightly better.
Whew. All right. Hey, Tom, which one would you pick?
If Sam had mentioned the way they beat the villain in The Rock, with that, you listen to Rocket Man, then I think he would have got over on Brian, but I didn't hear that, and I didn't hear anything. I think John Malkovich and Steve Buscemi steal Con Air, so I'm going to have to give it to Brian.
All right. Ash?
I was also going with Brian about it was just like a better movie, even though it had a lot of similar beats to Con Air. It was better executed in The Rock.
Yeah, I think for me it was pretty close as well. Brian, you also get my point. I think you guys had a very similar fight until the end there. I think Brian really brought it out. So good job, Brian. You get the first point. Well done. Lightning round number 2. These 2 movies are playing on cable. Which do we watch? Red Dawn, the Patrick Swayze Red Dawn, or Roadhouse?
Roadhouse.
Red Dawn.
Awesome. We got one of each. Brian, you chose Roadhouse first. So you are going to start whenever you're ready.
This is a Sophie's choice for me, but I had to pick Roadhouse just because I think it's the definitive Pat Swayze performance. He is a badass. He's kicking ass all over the place, but he's still got that cool philosophical thing that we see from Bodhi in Point Break. This movie has a couple of great villains, and also Sam Elliott. It's just a great 80s action.
All right, Sam.
See, I think Red Dawn is a better movie in terms of it's got a better plot and things along those lines of the submarine and the war elements. Roadhouse is, I didn't like it as much. But, I think Red Dawn for me.
All right, rebuttal from Ryan.
I'm going to rebut by saying I don't think Sam knows what movie he's talking about. No submarines in Red Dawn. There are some Wolverines, but they would probably get promptly hunted down by Dalton on one of his manly trips.
Sam, rebuttal.
Yeah, I haven't seen either movie.
Which, as we know from movie fights, is the kiss of death when you admit that. Which is why I believe we can all agree that Brian gets point number 2.
Yeah, I was thinking, did I miss something in Red Dawn? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember the
seriously,
submarine
though,
when they
that's a
attacked.
Sophie's
He's talking
choice
about
for me.
Hunter
I love Red Dawn. Sam, go and treat yourself to both those movies. That's an amazing 2-pack right there.
And you know what? Even the remake of Red Dawn isn't completely horrible, although I prefer the original.
Right.
game's really
It
cool.
wasn't good enough to justify its existence for me. It's like, sorry, you didn't quite crest, and make it to where I can think both. There's
Right.
only one good Red Dawn.
All right, so that means, Brian, you have 2 points. Sam, you don't have any. Sam, you need all 3 of the next questions to win the game. Brian, you just need to win 1. Lightning round number 3. What is the best movie based on a video game? Pick any movie based on a video game.
Well, everybody, we want to think about it.
All right, guys, I'm going to start the timer. You have 15 seconds to come up with an answer.
Pulling a Ken.
Resident Evil.
Hitman.
All right, so hang on 1 second. Hitman. And I'm sorry, was that Resident
Which
Evil?
Hitman are we talking about?
You said Resident
I'm gonna-
Evil?
Which?
I'm gonna
Hang on
go with. Oh, go ahead.
Hang on 1 second. Sam, you said Resident Evil?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. It cut out right as you said your answer. And then, Brian, you're doing Hitman.
Yes.
All right.
Which Hitman? Just for clarification.
I'll take the Timothy Oliphant Hitman.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because there was that other one.
There's that one that came out like last year.
Yeah, okay. Resident Evil gets to go first whenever you're ready, Sam.
Resident Evil is the far better movie. It's got a better cast. It's got Mila Djokovic. It's got the zombie element before zombies were outdated and oversaturated. It was a fun concept. It's got all the elements of the game in the movie. It's all about the Umbrella Corporation. The Hitman movie, you picked the wrong one. The newer one was better than the Elephant version. I could only get about halfway through the Elephant version before I had to give up on it.
Brian.
Now, see, I go the other way. I think the Oliphant version was better. It just didn't do well financially, and that's why they decided to reboot it. You have a good star in that one who actually brings something to the role. He's not just a guy whose head is shaved walking around. They actually take the time to try to do that perfect over-the-head shot from the video game to really make fans feel like they're there. They get into the elements of the costume things I love from the game.
Sam, rebuttal?
Being a fan of the Hitman games, I've played every Hitman game since they've ever gone out. That's the only reason I upgraded to a PS3. I hated Oliphant. He does not suit the Hitman Agent 47 character. Mila Djokovic is perfect in the Resident Evil role.
Brian.
I feel like there isn't much of a character. The Hitman Agent 47 character in the game is an avatar for you. Timothy Oliphant gave him a character by being a good actor in that role.
Time.
Oh, time. All right. Ash, let's start with you. Which argument did you like better?
This is the reason why we have the hashtag This Is Tough. And I felt like I think like Sam had like more specific things to say about Resident Evil with the cast, and I just didn't hear enough specific things from Brian on that one. So I would have gone with Sam.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I heard more about Resident Evil and Hitman from Sam, and I don't think I heard enough about Resident Evil from Brian, so I think I'm gonna give it to Sam too.
Yeah, I am also giving it to Sam for similar reasons. Good job, Sam. You get the point. 2-1, Brian. You have 2. Sam, you have 1. Lightning round number 4. Who was better, Steven Seagal or Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Van Damme.
Good call.
All right. And Seagal. All right, Sam, I heard Van Damme from you first, so you will begin.
I like Van Damme. He has more of a variety in the different movies that he's done, from Bloodsport to the he's in the Expendables and things like that. I find Seagal is the same character in all these movies. It's the same movie. It's just terrorists somewhere else. And I reckon there's better murder scenes with Van Damme. With the one I think of is the stake bone in the neck.
Brian.
I'm not going to argue the acting prowess of either of these guys. I'm going to say that Steven Seagal knew what he was, and he made the better choices in what movies he made. Jean-Claude Van Damme may have tried some things. He also had a lot worse movies in there, whereas Steven Seagal stuck tighter to his wheelhouse. And yeah, maybe some of them are a little similar, but they all have great little moments that make you remember why you're watching Steven Seagal.
Rebuttal, Sam?
I don't want to see the same movie over and over again. It's just the same performance. It's the same everything. Van Damme inspired a wrestling character, which also is another fun element to it. Yeah.
Time.
All right.
I don't know what Van Damme movies Sam has seen where he's really stretching his range. I can't personally think of any, and I would rather go watch. You can give us one. I can rather see better action movies rather than more diverse action movies.
Whew. All right. Tom, what'd you think?
Pretty much, I got from Brian that he liked that he at least admits that Steven Seagal is a one-trick pony. And I think Save gave Jean-Claude Van Damme the credit he deserves. If you see other work that he's done recently, he really goes out of the box, and it's some good stuff. I agree with Sam.
Okay. Ashley?
And Brian's argument won me over a little more specifically for that at least Seagal knows what his wheelhouse is, and even though he did a lot of the same movies, that point really stuck with me for some reason.
I think what Sam should have said and didn't.
I should have said Brian didn't actually mention one of the movie's names. I mentioned at least 3.
I can give you names. I can rattle off names. I'm like an IMDb page.
The thing I think that I was hoping for was that Van Damme's still making movies now and Seagal is not. I think that's really
keeping us safe on the streets of New Orleans.
And Brian did mention how Seagal really understood what his wheelhouse was and he stuck with it. I gotta be honest, I'm going to go with Brian. I think Brian gets the point. Which means for us, Ryan is the winner.
Shenanigans.
And he gets the save on the shipping of the belt. Congratulations to Brian. Well fought. Everybody did a really fantastic job today. I was really pleased with everybody. Congratulations.
Dude, I was sweating. I'm sweating bullets over here, man. You guys, come on. Took it to the wall. It was brutal in here.
So congratulations to Brian. Brian, guess what?
What?
In addition to winning the belt, which you've made, so that worked out for you.
Lovingly. Hey, I want you to know, my plan was to always send it. I actually contacted Jack because I felt bad. I felt like a jerk making it and then seeming like I was so confident. I wanted it. It was for everyone. I just wanted us to have one. So
we will have a fight again soon where you will put that belt on the line. But first,
I want to be a fighting champion, I promise.
You do get a second prize. No one knew about this prize until now, so I'm going to tell you. On June 5th, you and another fighter, which we will determine next week, will go up against Screen Junkie's own Hector Navarro, host of Knocking Dead. Hector has agreed to join us in a fan fight, and you will be one of the fighters. Next week, we will have 3 Screen Junkies fans facing off to see who will go join you in that fight on June 5th.
Oh, man, I can't wait to call him out on Twitter.
So congratulations. Well done, Brian. And as always, we would like to remind people of some of the goings-on TUFF. We have our new show, Odd Shape Panel, that Tom and Kimber run, which is fantastic. It appears every Monday night live on Blab, and that's usually around 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight. And then also on Monday, the previous week's episode will drop, so definitely check out our channel for that. Brian is going to be hosting a new show called The DVD Bunker, and we will be airing the trailer for that about 10 minutes or so on this the TUFF channel on YouTube. So follow us there. You'll see that update go up shortly, and it'll tell you all about the show. We'd love to see you for that. So please join us for that. And finally, as always, we are Screen Junkies fans, and we really appreciate everything the Screen Junkies do. This show's concept is based off on movie fights. If you've never seen their show, you absolutely should. It's fantastic. The information on where you can find the Screen Junkies is below in our description. So please give them a check out and a follow. They would really appreciate it, and so would we. So thank you very much. So again, to everyone that joined us today, we have Sam, Tom, Brian, and Ashley, thank you again for joining us on the championship round. Congratulations to Brian. Well done, everybody. And we'll see you all.
Great fight.
We'll see you all next week here on TUFF. And we're out.